The White House press said Monday President Donald Trump is increasingly frustrated with the leaders of both Russia and Ukraine and wants to see a permanent ceasefire first to stop the killing. According to Associated Press, the remarks from White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt come as Russian President Vladimir Putin on Monday declared a unilateral 72-hour ceasefire next week in Ukraine to mark Victory Day in World War II. Kiev, meanwhile, insisted on a longer and immediate truce, dismissing Putin's truce as window dressing. He is increasingly frustrated with leaders of both countries, Leavitt said at a White House briefing Monday morning. He wants to see a permanent ceasefire, she added. And while he remains optimistic, he can strike a deal, he's also being realistic as well, and both leaders need to come to the table to negotiate their way out of this, Leavitt said, adding that Trump wants to be a peacemaker president. Putin previously announced a unilateral 30-hour Easter ceasefire and Ukraine voiced readiness to reciprocate any genuine truce at the time, but it said Russian attacks continued. Moscow, in turn, accused Ukraine of failing to halt its attacks. Russia and Ukraine had also earlier pledged to observe a 30-day halt on strikes on energy infrastructure that was brokered by the Trump administration, but they repeatedly accused each other of massive violations until the measure expired. Trump said over the weekend he harbors doubts about Putin's sincerity in pursuing a deal, as Russian forces have continued to strike civilian areas of Ukraine with cruise and ballistic missiles while the talks have proceeded.
Hey everybody, how are you?
Caroline, can you tell us more about the meeting between President Trump and President Zelensky over the weekend? Did that meeting change anything? Did Trump leave that meeting thinking any differently about negotiations and next steps on this?
Look, the president talked about this after the meeting himself yesterday when he took questions from reporters on Air Force One. He thinks that he is increasingly frustrated with leaders of both countries. He wants to see a permanent ceasefire. I understand Vladimir Putin this morning offered a temporary ceasefire. The president has made it clear he wants to see a permanent ceasefire first to stop the killing, stop the bloodshed. And while he remains optimistic he can strike a deal, he's also being realistic as well. And both leaders need to come to the table to negotiate their way out of this. And I do think that the president meeting with President Zelensky shows that he is exuding a lot of effort and time into this because he wants to be a peacemaker president, which he was in his first term. He intends to do that again. And this is an incredibly difficult situation and conflict that President Trump inherited from President Biden, who allowed this war to start in the first place, but he's focused on solving this problem. Does anyone have border questions? Sure. Okay.
Thank you, Caroline.
Russian President Vladimir Putin on Monday declared a 3-day ceasefire ahead of the upcoming 80th anniversary of the Victory Day. The ceasefire will come into effect on the night of May 8th and will end on the night leading to May 11th. Under the ceasefire agreement, Russia will stop military actions and expects Ukraine to do the same. Moscow has also indicated its readiness for negotiations without preconditions. The Ukrainian Foreign Ministry responded to Putin's proposal for a ceasefire. Posting on X, Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha stated that if Russia truly wants peace, it must cease fire immediately and not wait until May 8th. Ukraine is ready to support a long-term, lasting and complete ceasefire. And this is what we have been constantly proposing, at least for 30 days, Sybiha wrote. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has not yet commented on Putin's proposal. It should be noted that Putin's proposal for a temporary ceasefire came hours after U.S. President Donald Trump said he believed Volodymyr Zelensky was prepared to give up his claim to the Crimean Peninsula as part of a longer-term truce deal. The fighters of the Special Operations Forces of the Armed Forces of Ukraine continue to successfully carry out tasks in the Kursk region of Russia. As reported by the Special Operations Forces, only on Saturday, April 26, a group from the 73rd Center in Kursk region destroyed an entire group of servicemen from the 810th Marine Brigade of the Russian Armed Forces during special operations. As a result, the Special Operations Forces operators also forced 2 enemy soldiers to surrender. The Special Operations Forces soldiers evacuated 1 prisoner of war to a safe place on a stretcher, while the other hobbled along on his own, the report says. At the same time, Special Operations Forces showed a video of the fighters working. While Chief of the Russian General Staff Gerasimov reports on the liberation of Kursk Oblast from Ukraine's security and defense forces, operators of the 73rd Center of the Special Operations Forces continue to successfully complete missions in this region. Just yesterday, a group from the 73rd Special Operations Forces Center wiped out an entire enemy group during special actions in Kursk Oblast. The mission continues, the report says. On April 26, Kremlin leader Vladimir Putin was informed that the last settlement in Kursk Oblast, Gornal, had allegedly been liberated from Ukrainian forces. Reports indicating that hostilities in Russia's Kursk Oblast have ended are untrue, the Ukrainian Armed Forces General Staff has stated. The Ukrainian Defense Forces continue their defensive operation in designated areas of Kursk Oblast. The operational situation remains difficult, but our units are holding their positions and carrying out their assigned tasks, inflicting effective fire on the enemy with all types of weapons and employing active defense tactics. 5 enemy assaults have been repelled in the Kursk operational area since the beginning of the day, with another engagement currently underway. Russian Ministry of Defense has shown footage of combat training of North Korean soldiers who took part in the fighting in the Kursk region. In this case, Russian President Vladimir Putin has thanked North Korea, its leader Kim Jong-un and units of the Korean People's Army for their help in liberating the Kursk region from Ukrainian formations, the Kremlin press service reported. Our North Korean friends' move was guided by a sense of solidarity, justice and genuine camaraderie, Putin pointed out in a statement. We highly appreciate this and are sincerely grateful, personally to the chairman of the State Affairs Committee, Comrade Kim Jong-un, as well as to the entire leadership and the people of North Korea, the Russian leader said. We commend the North Korean soldiers' heroism, their excellent training and dedication displayed while fighting, shoulder to shoulder with Russian soldiers, defending our motherland as their own, the Russian president emphasized. They fulfilled their duty with honor and valor, covering themselves with unfading glory, Putin noted. Kim Jong-un believes that North Korean forces' participation in the operation to liberate Russia's Kursk region from Ukrainian troops was a sacred mission aimed at strengthening friendship with Moscow, the Central Military Commission of the Workers' Party of Korea said in a statement.